The sky turned black on the day the aliens came. Danny Cole was sitting in the mess hall of the Mayan colony, eating his lunch, when the alarms started screaming. He dropped his fork and ran outside with the other soldiers. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Ships, hundreds of them. They covered the sky like a dark blanket, blocking out the sun. Each ship was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. They were black and smooth, shaped like giant insects, and they moved without making any sound. Danny was 34 years old. He had been a soldier for 12 years, serving in the United Earth Defense Corps. He had fought in small battles on distant moons. He had protected cargo ships from pirates. But he had never seen anything like this. Meridian 7 was a small colony on the edge of human space. Only 5,000 people lived there, mostly miners and their families. The planet was rich in rare metals that Earth needed for building starships. Danny and his unit of 50 soldiers were stationed there to protect the colony from small threats. Nobody had expected an invasion. Lieutenant Karen Moss came running toward him. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and a face that never showed fear. But today, Danny could see the worry in her eyes. "Cole, get to the command center, now." They ran together through the streets of the colony. People were screaming and crying. Children held on to their mothers. Old men stared at the sky with empty eyes. Everyone knew what those ships meant. Everyone had heard the stories. The Violet Empire had found them. In the command center, screens showed images from cameras all around the colony. Danny watched as the alien ships began to land. Each ship opened like a flower, and soldiers poured out by the hundreds. The Violeth were tall creatures, over 7 feet high. Their skin was dark purple, and their bodies were covered in hard scales like armor. They had 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. Their faces had no noses, just slits for breathing, and their mouths were filled with teeth like knives. Commander Vance, the leader of the colony's defense, stood in front of the screens. He was an old man who had fought in many wars. His hands were shaking. "They're surrounding us," he said. "We have maybe 2 hours before they reach the main settlement. What about the evacuation ships?" Lieutenant Moss asked. "There are 3 transport shuttles. They can carry maybe 3,000 people. We need at least 45 minutes to load them and another 15 to reach safe distance for the jump." Danny did the math in his head. 3,000 out of 5,000. That meant 2,000 people would be left behind. "We need to choose who goes," Commander Vance said. His voice was tired and sad. "Children first. Then their parents. Then essential workers." The next hour was the worst of Danny's life. He helped carry crying children onto the shuttles. He pulled mothers away from husbands who had to stay behind. He watched old people sit down on the ground, accepting that they would not survive this day. Through it all, the Valeth kept advancing. Reports came in every few minutes. They had reached the outer farms. They had destroyed the water treatment plant. They had killed the soldiers defending the northern road. Each report meant more of Danny's friends were dead. Lieutenant Moss found him near the last shuttle. The loading was almost complete. "Cole, the shuttle leaves in 10 minutes. Get on board." Danny looked at the tactical display one more time. The Valeth were close now, less than a mile away. 300 warriors, moving in a tight formation, heading straight for the landing zone. "How long does the shuttle need to reach safe jump distance?" he asked. 15 minutes after takeoff. "And how long until those warriors get here?" Lieutenant Moss was quiet for a moment. 10 minutes. Maybe less. Danny understood then. The shuttle would not make it. The Valeth would reach the landing zone before it could escape. They would shoot it down, and everyone inside would die, unless someone stopped them. "Someone needs to hold them here," Danny said. "That's impossible. 1 person against 300. You would last maybe 2 minutes. I don't need to win. I just need to slow them down. Give the shuttle enough time to get away." Lieutenant Moss grabbed his arm. Her grip was strong, but Danny could feel her hand trembling. "Danny, that's suicide. You'll die." He looked at her. They had served together for 3 years. She had taught him everything he knew about being a soldier. She was like a sister to him. "If I don't do this, everyone on that shuttle dies." 3,000 people. Children, Karen. Little kids who never hurt anyone. Her eyes filled with tears. In 12 years of service, Danny had never seen Lieutenant Moss cry. There has to be another way. There isn't. There isn't. He pulled his arm free gently. He checked his rifle. Full charge. He counted his grenades. 8. He touched the knife on his belt, the one his father had given him when he joined the army. "Tell them what happened here," Danny said. "Tell them we didn't run. Tell them we fought." Before she could say anything else, he turned and walked toward the enemy. The smoke from burning buildings filled the air. Danny moved through the ruins of the colony he had called home for 2 years. He passed the restaurant where he ate breakfast every morning. It was on fire now. He passed the school where he sometimes helped teach children about Earth history. It was nothing but rubble. The Veileth Scouts appeared first. They were smaller than the regular warriors, quick and quiet. They moved like shadows, checking every corner for threats. They did not expect to find any. The human defenders were dead or running. There was nobody left to fight. Danny proved them wrong. He waited behind a broken wall, barely breathing. 3 scouts passed right in front of him, so close he could smell their strange, sour scent. He waited until they were all in his sight. Then he opened fire. His rifle made a sharp cracking sound that echoed off the ruined buildings. The first scout fell with a hole in its chest. The second spun around, confused, and Danny put 2 shots through its head. The third tried to run, but Danny was faster. It dropped before it could take 3 steps. 3 down. 297 to go. Danny did not wait for more to come. He moved quickly to a new position, just like he had been trained. Find cover, fire, move. Find cover, fire, move. The scouts had radios. They would call for help. The main force would come looking for him. Good. That was exactly what Danny wanted. Every minute they spent chasing him was a minute the shuttle had to escape. He heard them before he saw them. The Veileth warriors were not quiet. They shouted to each other in their strange, clicking language. They were angry now. Someone was killing their scouts. Someone needed to die. Danny smiled. He checked his rifle again. "Come and get me," he whispered behind him. Far in the distance, he heard the roar of shuttle engines starting up. The last ship was taking off. 3,000 lives rising into the sky. He just needed to keep the Veileth busy for 15 more minutes. The first wave of warriors came around the corner, weapons raised, scales gleaming in the firelight. There were 20 of them. Each one was bigger than Danny, stronger than Danny, armed with better weapons than Danny. Danny did not care. He stood up from his hiding spot and started shooting. Danny killed 7 of them before they even knew where he was hiding. His rifle spat fire across the ruined street, and Veileth warriors fell like broken dolls. Purple blood splashed across the ground. The aliens screamed in surprise and pain. The remaining 13 tried to return fire. Their plasma weapons lit up the darkness with bright green bolts of energy. The shots hit the wall behind Danny, melting metal and stone into glowing liquid. But Danny was already moving. He had fought in enough battles to know one simple truth. If you stay in one place, you die. So he ran low and fast through the smoke and debris. He counted 3 seconds in his head, then dropped behind a burned-out vehicle. Before the Veileth could find him, he was shooting again. 3 more fell. Then 2 more. Then another one. The last three tried to run away. Danny did not let them. His shots caught them in the back, one after another, and they dropped in the street like stones. 20 warriors dead. And Danny had not even used his grenades yet. He checked his rifle. The power cell was half empty now. He had maybe 50 shots left. That was not enough. He needed to be smart about this. Far above him, through the gaps in the smoke and clouds, he could see the shuttle climbing toward space. It was a tiny dot of light against the black sky. Every second it flew higher was another second closer to safety. Danny moved to a new position. He found a half-destroyed building that used to be a grocery store. The shelves were broken and burned, but the walls were still standing. He could see the main street from the window. The Veilith would have to come that way. He waited. The Veilith were not stupid. After losing 20 warriors to a single enemy, they changed their approach. The next group came slowly, carefully, checking every shadow for threats. There were 50 of them this time, and they moved in a formation designed to protect each other. Danny watched them through his rifle scope. He counted their weapons, studied their formation, looked for weaknesses. He found one. The soldier in the center of the group was carrying a large pack on his back. Danny had seen packs like that before. They held ammunition and power cells for the entire squad. One good shot would make that pack explode. He took careful aim. His hands were steady. His breathing was slow and calm. He had practiced this 1,000 times. He pulled the trigger. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. The ammunition pack blew apart in a ball of fire and noise. The soldiers closest to it were killed instantly. The ones farther away were thrown to the ground by the blast. Some got up. Some did not. Danny did not waste time admiring his work. He threw one of his grenades into the confused group, then another. More explosions. More screams. More purple blood. When the smoke cleared, 32 more Veilith were dead. Danny ran again, moving deeper into the ruined colony. His side hurt. At some point during the fighting, a piece of flying metal had cut through his armor and into his flesh. He pressed his hand against the wound and kept moving. He did not have time to stop. On the Veilith command ship, high above the planet, Empress Sithara watched everything through her tactical screens. She was sitting on a throne made of black metal, surrounded by her advisors and guards. Her 4 eyes were fixed on the display, and her clawed hands gripped the arms of her throne so hard that the metal bent. "What is happening down there?" she demanded. Commander Veth, her most trusted advisor, consulted his data screens. His purple scales had turned pale with confusion. "Empress, we have lost 52 warriors in the last 10 minutes. All of them were killed by a single human. One human? That is impossible." "I thought so too, Empress. But the evidence is clear. The other humans have fled. Only one remains, and he is responsible for all these deaths." Sithara leaned forward on her throne. She had been Empress of the Veilith for 300 years. She had conquered 17 civilizations and destroyed countless worlds. Her armies had never lost a battle. Her warriors were bred from birth to be perfect soldiers. And now one human was making fools of them. "All, show me this human," she ordered. The screen changed to show a camera view from one of the surviving warriors. Sithara watched as the human appeared from behind the wall, fired 3 perfect shots, and disappeared again before anyone could react. His movements were fast but controlled. He did not waste bullets. He did not hesitate. "He fights like he has nothing to lose," Commander Veth observed. "He has everything to lose," Sithara corrected. "His life, his species, his planet. He fights because he has no other choice. That is what makes him dangerous." She studied the human's face on the screen. He looked so weak, so fragile. Soft skin that could be cut by a child's claw. small body that could be crushed by a single blow. No scales, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind, yet he kept killing her warriors. "Send the elite guard," Sithara ordered. 50 of our best soldiers. "End this now." Commander Veth bowed his head. "As you command, Empress." On the ground, Danny knew they were coming. He could feel it in the way the air changed, the way the sounds of battle shifted. The Valeth were done playing games. They were sending their best. He found a good position in the ruins of a water tower. From there, he could see the approaching enemy. He could see the shuttle too, still climbing, still trying to reach safety. It needed maybe 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. He just had to survive for 5 more minutes. The elite guards were different from the regular warriors. They were bigger, faster, and their armor was thicker. They carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. They moved in perfect formation, covering every angle, leaving no opening for attack. Danny watched them come. He had 3 grenades left. He had maybe 20 shots in his rifle. He had his knife. And he had something the Valith did not understand. He had hope. The first grenade took out 5 of them. The explosion caught the left side of their formation and threw bodies across the street. The elite guards responded instantly, turning toward the source of the attack and opening fire. Danny was already gone. He dropped from the water tower and ran through a narrow alley, bullets and plasma bolts screaming past his head. A piece of energy hit his shoulder, burning through his armor and cooking his skin. He gasped in pain but did not stop running. He burst out of the alley behind the enemy formation. They had expected him to flee. Instead, he was attacking. His rifle cut down 3 more guards before they could turn around. Then another 2. Then another 4. The remaining guards scattered, breaking their perfect formation in confusion. Danny moved through them like a ghost, firing and running, appearing and disappearing. Every time they thought they knew where he was somewhere else. But there were too many of them. A blow from a war staff caught him in the chest and knocked him to the ground. He felt ribs crack. Pain exploded through his body. He rolled away from the next strike and came up swinging. His knife found the gap in an elite guard's armor, and purple blood sprayed across Danny's face. He pulled the knife free and stabbed again. Another guard fell. They were all around him now, closing in. Danny killed 2 more with his knife before a plasma bolt hit him in the leg. He fell again, screaming, but he did not stay down. He pushed himself up, using his knife like a cane. His leg was bleeding badly. His ribs were broken. His shoulder was burned. But he stood up, and he raised his knife, and he faced them. The elite guards stopped moving. They had never seen anything like this. They had fought 100 species across the galaxy. They had faced warriors with better weapons, better armor, better technology. But they had never faced an enemy who simply refused to die. "Come on," Danny said, his voice rough with pain. "Come on." Above him, the shuttle disappeared into the clouds, too far away for the Valeth to catch. 3,000 lives saved. Danny smiled, blood running down his face. The elite guards attacked. Empress Sithara rose from her throne. Her advisors looked at her with surprise. In 300 years, she had never left her command ship during a battle. She had never needed to. Her armies always won without her help. But this was different. "Prepare my transport," she ordered. "I am going to the surface." Commander Veth stepped forward, his forearms spread in a gesture of worry. "Empress, please reconsider. This human is dangerous. We should send more troops, not risk your life." "I am not going to fight him," Sithara said. She walked toward the transport bay, her long robes flowing behind her. "I am going to see him. I need to understand what kind of creature can do what he has done." The transport carried her down through the clouds. Through the windows, She could see the burning colony below. Fires lit up the darkness. Smoke rose in thick columns. And somewhere in that destruction, one human was still fighting. The reports kept coming as she descended. The human had killed 12 more elite guards. Then he was wounded again. Then he killed 5 more. Each report made Sithara more confused. How was this possible? Her elite guards were the finest warriors in the galaxy. Each one had trained for 50 years. Each one could kill 100 regular soldiers. And this one human, this soft, fragile creature, was cutting through them like they were nothing. The transport landed near the edge of the battle zone. Sithara stepped out, surrounded by her personal guard. These were not elite soldiers. These were the royal protectors, the strongest and most loyal warriors in the entire Valeth Empire. Each one had sworn to die for their Empress. She walked toward the sound of fighting. Danny saw her coming. He was barely standing now. His body was a map of wounds. The plasma burn on his shoulder had spread, cooking his flesh black. His broken ribs made every breath feel like knives. His leg was soaked in blood, and he could no longer feel his foot. But he was still alive, and he was still holding his knife. The elite guards had pulled back when the Empress arrived. They stood in a circle around Danny, weapons ready but not firing. They were waiting for orders. Sithara walked through the circle until she was standing 20 meters from the human. She studied him carefully with all 4 of her eyes. He looked even weaker up close. His skin was pale and wet with blood. His body was shaking. His eyes were unfocused with pain, yet he did not fall. "Human," she called out. "What is your name?" Danny blinked. He had trouble seeing clearly. Everything was spinning. But he heard the voice, and he understood the words. The Valeth spoke through translator devices that turned their clicking language into human speech. "Danny," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Danny Cole. Danny Cole," Sithara repeated. The name felt strange in her mouth. "You have fought well. Your people have escaped. Your purpose is complete. There is no more reason to resist." Danny laughed. It hurt so much that tears ran down his face, but he laughed anyway. "You think this is about reason? You think I'm doing math in my head, calculating if it's worth it to keep fighting?" He took a step toward her. Just one small step, but the royal guards moved closer, ready to attack. "I don't fight because it makes sense. I fight because I can't stop. Because every time I think about giving up, I think about those kids on that shuttle. I think about their scared little faces. And I think about what your people would do to them if I let them through." He took another step. "So no, I won't kneel. I won't surrender. I won't stop. You want me to die? You're going to have to work for it." Sithara felt the cold sensation again, the one she had felt on her ship. Fear. Raw, primal fear. Not for her own safety. She was surrounded by guards who would die for her. But fear of what this creature represented. "You are one human," she said. "I have thousands of warriors. Millions. I have conquered civilizations that built weapons that could destroy stars. What can you possibly do against all of that?" Danny smiled. His teeth were red with blood. "I can make you remember. Every time you think about conquering Earth, you'll remember this day. You'll remember the colony you couldn't take, the one human you couldn't break. And you'll ask yourself, how many more like him are there? How many more will stand against us? How much will we have to sacrifice to destroy them all?" He raised his knife. "I'm just one guy, but I'm not special. I'm not some superhuman hero. I'm just a regular soldier who loves his people. And there are billions like me back home. Every single one of them would do what I'm doing right now." Sithara looked at her guards. She looked at the bodies of her warriors scattered across the battlefield. Nearly 100 dead, all killed by this one weak, wounded creature. She tried to imagine 1 billion of them. 1 billion humans, each one as stubborn and fierce as Danny Cole. Each one willing to die rather than surrender. Each one fighting until their last breath for the people they loved. For the first time in 300 years, Empress Sithara felt doubt. "Kill him," Commander Veth said from behind her. He had followed her down to the surface. "Empress, we cannot let him live. He is a symbol. If word spreads that one human humiliated our forces, other species will lose their fear of us. He is already a symbol," Sithara said quietly. "Killing him changes nothing. The damage is done." Danny watched them talking. He could not understand what they were saying. The translator only worked one way, but he could see the Empress's body language. He could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She was afraid of him. No, not afraid of him. Afraid of what he represented. Afraid of humanity. That thought gave Danny strength. His legs stopped shaking. His vision cleared. He straightened his back and stood tall, even though every movement sent waves of agony through his body. "Well?" he said. "What's it going to be?" Sithara made a decision. She turned to her royal guards and pointed at Danny. "Take him." The guards rushed forward. Danny tried to fight, but his body finally betrayed him. His leg gave out, and he fell to his knees. A guard grabbed his arm and twisted the knife from his grip. Another guard hit him in the head, and darkness exploded across his vision. But even as he fell, even as consciousness slipped away, Danny's last thought was of the shuttle. 3,000 people, safe in the stars. He had won. Sithara stood over the unconscious human. She studied his broken body, noting every wound, every burn, every injury. By any logic, he should have died hours ago. His heart should have stopped. His brain should have shut down. His body should have given up, but it had not. "What are humans made of?" she asked quietly. Commander Veth did not have an answer. Sithara reached down and touched Danny's face. His skin was warm and soft, so different from the hard scales of her own people. So fragile, so easy to destroy. Yet somehow, impossibly, incredibly, he had held off an entire army. "Bring him to my ship," she ordered. "Do not harm him further. I want to study this creature. I want to understand what drives them." The guards picked up Danny's limp body and carried him toward the transport. Sithara followed, her mind racing with questions. She had conquered 17 civilizations. She had destroyed species that had existed for millions of years. She had never met an enemy. She could not break until now, until humanity, until Danny Cole. Danny woke up in pain. Every part of his body hurt. His shoulder burned. His ribs screamed. His leg throbbed with a deep, terrible ache. For a moment, he did not know where he was or what had happened. Then he remembered. The battle. The Empress. The darkness. He was alive. That was surprising. He opened his eyes and found himself lying on a metal table in a dark room. Strange lights flickered on the ceiling. The air smelled different, thick and sour, like old meat. This was not human technology. This was alien. He was on the Valith ship. Danny tried to move, but his body refused to cooperate. He could barely lift his head. His wounds had been treated, he noticed. Bandages covered his burns. Something had been done to his leg. But the treatment was rough, just enough to keep him alive. Not enough to heal him properly. The door opened, and Empress Sithara walked in. She was alone. No guards, no advisors. Just her, wearing simple robes instead of her battle armor. She looked smaller without her crown and her weapons. Almost ordinary. She pulled up a chair and sat next to Danny's table. For a long moment, she just looked at him, studying him like a scientist studying a strange animal. "You should be dead," she said finally. Danny tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. "Sorry to disappoint you." It is not disappointment. It is curiosity. My medical officers say your body suffered damage that should have killed you many times over. Your heart stopped twice during the battle. Twice. And yet you kept fighting. I'm stubborn. It is more than stubbornness. I have seen stubborn warriors. I have seen brave soldiers. I have never seen anything like you. Sithara leaned closer. When my guards shot you with plasma weapons, you did not fall. When they broke your bones, you stood up again. When your body was failing, when your brain must have been screaming at you to stop, you kept coming. Why? Danny was quiet for a moment. He thought about the question. He thought about everything that had happened on Meridian 7. Do you have children? He asked. Sithara seemed surprised by the question. I have many offspring. It is expected of an empress. Do you love them? Love is not a Vileth concept. We care for our young because they carry our bloodline. They are valuable, important, but love as you humans understand it, no. We do not feel that. Danny nodded slowly. That's the difference then. That's why you don't understand. He looked at the ceiling, gathering his strength to speak. I don't have kids. Never got married. But those people on that shuttle, those 3,000 refugees, they were my family. Not by blood, by choice. I ate breakfast with them every day. I watched their kids play in the streets. I helped fix their houses when storms damaged them. They trusted me to protect them. He turned his head to look at Sithara. When you love someone, really love them, you don't think about yourself anymore. You don't care about pain or fear or death. You just care about keeping them safe. And that love, it gives you strength that nothing else can give. It makes you do impossible things. Sithara was silent. She did not understand what Danny was describing. The Vileth did not love. They formed alliances based on power. They bred offspring to continue their lineage. They served the Empire because it gave them purpose. But love? Sacrifice? Dying for someone you were not related to? These were alien concepts. Your species is very strange, she said finally. Maybe. Or maybe your species has forgotten something important. Sithara stood up and walked to the window. Through the glass, she could see the planet below. The fires had stopped now. The colony was quiet. Her troops had completed their sweep of the settlement, capturing the humans who had stayed behind. There were about 2,000 of them, mostly old people and workers who had given their spots on the shuttles to others. My advisors want me to destroy your species, she said. They say you are too dangerous to leave alive. They say we should burn Earth and every human colony until nothing remains. Danny felt his heart go cold. He tried to sit up, but his body would not let him. If you do that, you'll regret it forever. Sithara turned to look at him. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You saw what one human can do when he has something to protect. Imagine what 8 billion of us would do if you threatened our homeworld. We would fight you across every star system. We would never stop. We would never surrender. You might win in the end, but the cost would be more than you can imagine. We have conquered stronger species than yours. But have you conquered species that fight like us? Species that would rather die than submit? Species where every single person, from the oldest grandfather to the youngest child, would pick up a weapon and fight to the last breath? Sithara did not answer. She remembered the reports from the battle. Nearly 100 of her finest warriors, killed by one wounded human with a rifle and a knife. And he was not special. He had said so himself. He was just a regular soldier. If regular soldiers could do that, what could their heroes do? Their generals? Their champions? Commander Veth's voice came through the communicator on Sithra's wrist. Empress, the fleet is ready to proceed to Earth, awaiting your orders. Sithara looked at Danny. He was watching her with those strange human eyes. so soft and vulnerable, yet somehow filled with a fire that would not die. "Hold position," she said into the communicator. "I need more time. Empress, we have an opportunity to end the human threat forever. If we wait, they may prepare defenses." I said, "Hold position, Commander." "That is an order." There was a pause, then Veth's reluctant voice. "As you command, Empress." Sithara turned back to Danny. "Tell me about Earth. Tell me about your people. Help me understand what I'm dealing with." Danny was surprised. He had expected torture or execution, not conversation. But if talking could save lives, he would talk until his voice gave out. "Where do you want me to start?" "Start with your history. Your wars, your conquests. Tell me what humans have done to survive." Danny took a deep breath. His ribs hurt, but he ignored the pain. "Okay, let me tell you about a city called Stalingrad." He talked for hours. He told Sithara about human history, about the wars they had fought against each other. He told her about soldiers who had frozen to death defending their homes. He told her about cities that had been bombed into rubble, where people lived in the ruins and kept fighting anyway. He told her about resistance movements, about ordinary people who had picked up weapons against armies that should have crushed them. He told her about prisoners who had built radios from garbage and organized rebellions. He told her about nurses who had stayed in hospitals during bombing raids, treating the wounded even as the buildings burned around them. Sithara listened to everything. And with every story, her fear grew. These creatures were not just dangerous. They were impossible. They defied logic. They fought when fighting made no sense. They hoped when there was no reason for hope. They loved with an intensity that the Veleth could not even imagine. When Danny finally stopped talking, his voice hoarse and his throat raw, Sithara stood in silence for a long moment. Then she walked to the door. "Where are you going?" Danny asked. Sithara paused, her hand on the door panel. "To make a decision that will change the future of my empire, and perhaps the future of your species as well." She left without another word. Danny lay on the table, alone with his pain and his thoughts. He had done everything he could. He had fought with his body, and now he had fought with words. The rest was up to the Empress. All he could do was hope that somewhere in her alien heart, she had understood. Empress Sithara called a council of her highest advisors. They gathered in the great hall of her command ship, 30 of the most powerful Velith in the empire. Warriors, generals, scientists, and diplomats, all waiting to hear their Empress speak. Commander Veth stood at her right side, his forearms crossed in frustration. He had argued against this meeting. He had wanted to attack Earth immediately, while the humans were still unprepared. Every hour of delay gave them time to organize their defenses, but Sithara had ignored him. "I have made a decision about the human species," she announced. Her voice echoed through the great hall. "We will not attack Earth. We will not attempt to conquer their colonies. The Veleth Empire will leave humanity alone." The hall exploded with noise. Advisors shouted questions and objections. Some looked angry. Others looked confused. Commander Veth stepped forward, his face twisted with disbelief. "Empress, this is madness. We have never retreated from a conquest. Our reputation, our power, everything depends on our image as unconquerable warriors. If we turn back now, other species will think us weak." "Let them think what they wish," Sithara said calmly. "I would rather be thought weak than be truly destroyed." "Destroyed? By humans? They are nothing. One small species on one small planet. We could crush them in a month. Could we?" Sithara activated a holographic display. It showed the battlefield on Meridian 7, the streets covered with the bodies of Veleth warriors. One human killed 97 of our soldiers. One wounded, outnumbered human with inferior weapons. And he was not a special warrior. He was just an ordinary soldier. She let that sink in. The humans have 8 billion people on Earth alone. Millions more in their colonies. If even a small percentage of them fight like Danny Cole, we would lose millions of warriors trying to conquer them. And even if we won, what then? They would never submit. They would fight us forever. Every generation. Every world. Every individual. An endless war that would drain our resources and our strength. An old advisor named Krath stepped forward. He was the chief scientist of the Empire, known for his wisdom and caution. Empress, may I speak? You may. I have studied the data from the battle. I have analyzed the human's biology, his psychology, his behavior. And I must agree with your assessment. Humans are not like any species we have conquered before. Their capacity for endurance is remarkable. Their ability to function despite injury is extraordinary. But most importantly, their emotional bonds give them strength that we cannot measure or predict. Krath activated his own display, showing medical scans of Danny Cole. This human's body should have shut down dozens of times during the battle. His heart stopped twice. His blood loss was fatal. His pain levels should have rendered him unconscious. Yet he kept fighting. When I asked him how this was possible, he spoke of love, of protecting the people he cared about. Love is weakness, Commander Veth said. It clouds judgment. It makes creatures irrational. Perhaps Krath agreed, but it also makes them dangerous beyond calculation. A Valith warrior fights for duty, for honor, for the Empire. These are powerful motivations, but they have limits. When death is certain, our warriors accept it. They stop fighting. They surrender to preserve themselves. He pointed at Danny's image. This human faced certain death and refused to accept it. Not because he thought he could win, but because giving up was simply not something he was capable of doing. His love for his people made surrender impossible. That kind of motivation cannot be broken. It cannot be conquered. It can only be destroyed, and destruction costs more than it gains. The hall was quiet now. The advisors were thinking, considering the scientist's words. Sithara looked around the room. I have ruled this empire for 300 years. I have conquered 17 civilizations. I have made us the most powerful force in this sector of the galaxy. And I am telling you now that attacking humanity would be the worst mistake we could make. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Some prey is not worth the hunt. Some enemies are better as friends. The humans are one such species. We will offer them peace. We will offer them trade. We will treat them as equals, not as subjects. And if they refuse? Commander Veth asked. They will not refuse. They do not want war any more than we do. They want to live, to grow, to explore the stars. If we give them the chance to do so peacefully, they will take it. She turned back to her advisors. Send a message to the human government. Tell them that the Valith Empire wishes to discuss terms of peace. Tell them we will release all prisoners and withdraw from their space. And tell them that one of their soldiers, Danny Cole, has earned our respect. The message was sent. 3 days later, a human delegation arrived at the Valith command ship. They were nervous and suspicious, but they were willing to talk. The peace talks lasted 2 weeks. In the end, a treaty was signed. The Valith would never attack human territory. Humans would never attack Valith territory. Trade routes were established. Diplomatic relations began. Danny Cole was released as part of the agreement. He had spent those 2 weeks in the medical bay of the Valith ship, recovering from his wounds. The alien doctors had healed him as best they could, but he would carry scars for the rest of his life. His shoulder would always ache in cold weather. His leg would never be quite as strong as it was before. His ribs would hurt when he breathed too deeply. but he was alive. And humanity was safe. When he returned to human space, Danny became famous. News of his stand on Meridian 7 spread across every colony. People called him a hero. They made statues of him. They wrote songs about him. Children played games where they pretended to be Danny Cole, fighting off alien armies with nothing but courage and a knife. Danny hated all of it. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a soldier who had done his job. He felt like a man who had been lucky enough to survive when others had not. The real heroes, he said, were the people on that shuttle. The parents who had given everything to protect their children. The workers who had stayed behind so others could escape. He never forgot them. After a year of recovery, Danny returned to service. He was offered promotions, command positions, political roles. He refused them all. He asked to be assigned to a quiet colony on the edge of human space, far from the attention and the fame. His request was granted. For the next 30 years, Danny lived a simple life. He worked as a teacher at a small school, telling children about history and science and the stars. He grew vegetables in a garden behind his house. He made friends with the families in his community. Sometimes late at night, he would sit on his porch and look up at the sky. He would think about Meridian 7. He would think about Lieutenant Moss, who had survived and was now a general. He would think about Empress Sithara, who still ruled the Valith Empire and had kept every promise she made. Mostly, he thought about the children on that shuttle. They were grown now, with children of their own. Some of them had found Danny over the years and thanked him. They told him stories about their lives, their jobs, their families. They told him that they would never forget what he had done. Those conversations meant more to Danny than any medal or statue. When people asked him if he was proud of what he had accomplished, Danny always gave the same answer. I was just doing my job. I was protecting the people I loved. Any human would have done the same. And deep down, he believed that was true. Because that was the thing about humans. They were not special because of their strength or their technology or their intelligence. They were special because of their hearts. Because they could love so deeply that they would face impossible odds just to keep their loved ones safe. That was what the Valith had learned on Meridian 7. That was what the galaxy would remember for generations too. Never underestimate a human with something to protect. And somewhere, on the other side of the stars, Empress Sithara remembered Danny Cole. She told the story to her children and her grandchildren. She made sure that every Valith in the Empire knew what had happened on that day. She told them about the human who would not fall, the soldier who could not be broken, the man who had saved his people through nothing but courage and love. And whenever a young Valith asked her what humans were really like, Sithara would smile her strange alien smile and say the same thing every time. They are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, not because of what they can do, but because of what they will do. They will fight for each other until the stars grow cold. They will never give up. They will never stop hoping. That is why we made peace with them. And that is why we will never break that peace. Because some enemies are too costly to fight. And some friends are too valuable to lose. Danny Cole died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 92. His funeral was attended by thousands. Among the mourners was a Valith delegation, sent personally by Empress Sithara to pay respects to the human who had changed history. He was buried on the colony he had called home, with a simple gravestone that read, Danny Cole Soldier, Teacher, Friend, he protected what he loved. The end.